Good morning, students. And today we once again return back to SpaCy. And yeah, I guess this is the last tutorial. I guess once you after this tutorial, you should be able to have a good idea about SpaCy. There will be one more functionality that I would not talk about, but you should explore. Actually, is in the GitHub. In the under SpaCy plus training neural network, and also under case studies called technology neural, right, in which you can train your own name entity recognition using neural network instead of entity rulers, right? So that is something you may want to take a look, but I think once you open it, is actually very self-explanatory anyway, right? But anyway, today we're gonna look at something very practical and very useful in real world. That is resume parsing. So basically, I have the idea that I have some resume and I want to automatically pass it and extract some important information from that resume, right? So that I can send to HR and the HR can quickly process it, right? Amazingly, that can be done very quickly, fairly easily with SpaCy NER capabilities, right? So today let's look at what we're gonna have in our outline. So we're gonna load some data. We're gonna load some skill data. So this is instead of defining patterns, actually we can define a set of texts, right, in which we can tell SpaCy that, hey, we are interested in this kind of words, right? And then based on that, we're gonna extract the skills, right? And then when maybe do some visualization, and then maybe load some PDF, the real PDF, and tried our learn name entity recognition, right? Great. So without further ado, let us start our resume parsing. So let us load some data, right? So we're going to use pandas. And here we're going to first load our CSV file. All right. And you may wonder, what does this look like? So I think we can, okay, let me start at 32. Maybe let me just make it look nice and start at 1. And then, so yeah, so looking at this, it seems like it's list of resume, right? Like, so this is the first resume, right? So there's a lot of string, and then the actual HTML of this resume, and then there's some category, right? I wonder what is the so this is the category, right? So there's a lot of resume belong to it seems to be belong to different categories, right? Actually, we can open this file a little bit and take a look, right? Yep, it's quite huge. So we have ID, resume strength, and HTML and category, and we have a huge amount of information about each of the person, right? Right. So that is something that I think that's enough for us to understand what is the CSV file. And then since you can see that a lot of this category is in order, like a lot is bundled up in HR, designer, like in order, right? So I don't want this order. So I'm gonna do some reindexing. So I'm gonna do df resume, go to df resume dot reindex np.random dot permutation. So permutation is basically permute all give the same list as the index, but permute it, right? And then just reindex it. And then since my computer, I'm doing a tutorial, right? So I don't want to read all the CSV, like how many lines is this, right? So we can take a look, right? This is like 2,484 resume. So I don't want to do that. So this is optional. If you have very powerful computers, feel free to just use everything. I'm just gonna say that I'm gonna take only the first 1,000, and I'm gonna retain the 4 columns. All right. Great. So that is my plan for loading data. All right. So that is done. All right. So now the next part is we're loading the skill data. So we're too lazy to actually write the patterns ourselves, right? So we have a list of skill that we are interested. So let me open this. And so label skill patterns .NET, etc., etc. And in fact, to be honest, I did not actually wrote this myself. I just found I just searched the Google and tried to find such kind of list, right? But of course, this is something that your HR team may be interested to make, right? Or your team managers, right? So yep. So now I'm just gonna do import SpaCy. NLP.load. NLP equal to SpaCy.load. Import web MD. And skill pod is equal to data and skill. All right. All right. So now the next thing we can do is add entity rulers. Ruler equal to NLP.add pipe. Entity ruler, right? Like I said, entity ruler is even though it's rule based, is you may wonder like, okay, since neural network has arrived, no one is using rules. That is not true, right? Because rule has a lot of advantage. It can control how you want things to be, right? So if you're very clear on rules, right? Why not use rules? Because you can control user experience, etc., right? But in the real world, what you actually do is combining rules with neural network, right? That probably makes the most sense, right? Instead of just relying on neural network or just relying on rules itself, right? And yeah, I actually there's another functionality that neural can do, right? That is not only using rules, but actually train your own neural network to do this. All right, so ruler from this, right? So this is a very powerful command, right? So you just specify this skill set and just say from this, right? And it can load all this thing into this ruler. So this is a fantastic. And then the NLP.pipe names. So we can check a little bit so great. So we have now this entity ruler added in, right? And it's loaded based on this skill.json file, right? So it's amazing, right? So now we can actually test a little bit. So we can see doc equal to NLP. Chucky loves deep learning, right? Doc.hence, I think. And you can see that it is loading. It is specifying Chucky, and actually it should load some. It should detect deep learning because I don't have this, right? So let me just take a look at this q.json file. Ajax, right? Ajax. Yep. Love Ajax. Right. So you can immediately see that the entity rulers can actually detect the Ajax, right away, right? So great. So I think we're going to play around with this more and below, right? So it seems like our skills is working fine. All right. Now let us extract all the skills from the resume CSV file, right? So that is what we want to do, right? So df resume, go ahead. All right. And so firstly, what we're going to do is clean our data, right? So you can see that our data is a little bit like a lot of space. I'm not sure whether I can rely on this, right? So I'm gonna clean my resume underscore string a little bit. All right. So I'm gonna do. I think this is something we have learned in the previous tutorial, right? And you can see that it's very nice that we can reuse them. So this is the same code that we have written. So stop words equal to list of stop words. NLP sentence. Clean tokens is equal to a list, right? So this is something that we have done previously, right? And we're going to apply this same function for this column resume string. Yep. And then we're going to do for token and doc. I'm just going to add more cell below. In doc, and then stop words. And I think it's punk. And yeah. Yeah, you can add as much as you want, but I'm just gonna keep that. And then now we can say clean tokens dot append token dot lemma dot lower. So I'm gonna get only the lemma, right, and the lowercase, and I'm gonna strip them. Yep. So this procedure is very important, right? Because I don't want our HR to be confusing about capitalized or lowercase. We don't want we don't want the HR manager to be to have like so many lemma, right? So we by doing this, we can normalize all this text to be in the same format as much as possible, right? So it's easy to read. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna return here. We can return the list, right? But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna return basically a string, right? So I'm gonna say join all this list, each of the list element using a space. All right, great. So with this function now we can do something like this. We're gonna say random. We can actually test. I think random resume equal to df underscore resume dot resume string. Let's say we take 5. Okay, number 5. And we can take a look. All right. Yep. Let's see in that resume. Let's only take the first 200 characters. Yep. So it seems like it's very long, blah blah blah. And of course, if you take 300, that would be all the text we can see, right? So then now we can try to use a function, and we can say preprocessing random resume 300, and you can see that this is a lowercase, the space is gone, and some of their and is gone, right? It's okay because in my program, what I want is actually just extracting skills, right? But of course, if you want to be more sophisticated, then you may not want to remove this and, right? So it depends on what you actually want to achieve. But here, I just want to extract the skills that this guy actually has, right? Great. So it seems like my preprocessing is working. All right. So now let me just apply to the whole data frame. And this is going to take quite a long time. So I'm going to go for I row and df dot iter rows. Clean text equal to preprocessing row dot string, and then call that we're going to use add, right? Very nice. So we're going to replace that I row with a new column called clean resume, and it's going to be the clean text, right? Okay, great. So this is going to take maybe I have tried and takes around 2-3 minutes. So I'm going to pause my video and come back when it's done. Okay, so now we are done. So we can actually take a look at the new resume. Okay, so as you can see now, we have a new column called clean resume, in which we can actually use to extract skills, right? Great. So now we are done with this. So let us close this. So let us extract skills, and this is not going to be so difficult, right? So I'm going to create a function called get skills text, and then here, firstly, what I can do is make them into a SpaCy component, and create an empty list of skills, and then for end in doc.end, if end dot label equal to skill, right? And this skill is actually matched to the learn pattern here, right? Skill. Skills dot append and dot text. Right. So now we can have all the skills, and we're going to return the skills. So very, very simple. And of course, we're going to have a very simple function called unique skills. And actually, this is going to be just X. Yep. All right. So now we are done. Now we can enter here. And all right. So now we can apply this function. So we're going to say df resume skills, right? So this is a new column we're going to create. We're going to say df resume dot clean resume dot apply, and we're going to apply this function right away, right? And then of course we can also apply the once we have this skills column, we want to make sure that we only have the unique skills. So we're going to say resume dot skills dot applied unique skills, right? So that this apply function is very nice. It's just going to look at each of the row, apply this function, and then so we can get very we don't need to say each rows, etc., right? So we're going to do this, and maybe it's going to take a few minutes, right? So let's wait. All right, so this took around roughly 2 minutes for my MacBook. So now that I can, of course, I can try to see whether there's anything. So I can try maybe the first row of data, and you can see that it's actually extracted quite meaningful of skills like search engine design support. I'm not sure what release, right? But probably release is specified in here. And I don't want to search here, but yeah, probably that is specified inside, right? Great. So now we can we now have we extract all the skills. Let us maybe do some simple visualization, right? To check let's say in the category of information management, how the skills fare out. So we're going to do set df resume firstly to check what the existing category, right? And we're going to first focus on information technology because that is the area I am most related to. So I'm going to just copy that and uncomment this to make sure it does not take too much space of our screen. And then we're going to say category equal to that. And I'm just going to extract the resume in which the category is equal to category. All right. And now I'm going to say IT is equal to the resume condition, right? And the resume IT.shake. Now we have actually 44 resume that is belonging to this category IT, right? Now what we can do is we can actually concatenate all the skills in this resume. So we're going to say np.concatenate dot skills dot values, and let's take a look how this list look like, right? So it's list of a lot of link, and the next thing is we want to do some counting. So we're going to say from collections import counter. Yeah, collections is a very useful. Like you always use this guy to count to counting equal to counter all skills. All right, and then we don't have to worry about lowercasing, uppercasing because we have extracted and make sure they are all in the same format, right? And then counting equal to arithmetic. This is just so that I can easily get information. Yep. All right. And then we can actually take a look at this. So it seems like in IT support is the highest skilled in the resume. We have software, we have design, server makes sense, right? So it seems like our resume parsing program makes sense, right? Because it extracts a lot of relevant skills in IT, right? Of course, you can change to some other category and take a look, right? I think this is very amazing. Yep. So of course we can plot it a little bit. Import matplotlib .pyplot as PLT. And PLT.figure, let's make sure it is a little bit big. 15.3, that is my favorite size. We're gonna just set some x6, rotation equal to 45. This is just so that when it prints, the name on bottom is rotated. And then we're gonna say we want a bar chart in which we want the keys and the values. Great. So this is a very nice chart that you can actually, as HR manager or whatever, you can plot them and understand the distribution of people applying in your company, right? Great. So I think we are now done. Right. We can do actually until now we already almost done. We can play more on name entity recognition. Right. So let's try this. So SpaCy import DisplayC. Right. So this is just for visualization. So we can say text equal to resume it dot clean resume dot let's try one, like let's say 32, right? And then so we can send this to as a SpaCy object, and then we can render all this entity, right? So firstly I'm gonna say colors. Well, of course, if you can just directly do the render doc, right, and style equal to n, right? So you can see that a lot of skills are highlighted together with the original pipeline that is already existed in the SpaCy, right? So you can see a lot of skills. Of course, you can play around with like colors, like, well, you can do something like this, right? You can colors equal to skill linear gradient. Right. So maybe we can try like that. And we can also say options, and now we can put this into here. Right. So now we can add this options. This is not so important, but it makes your it makes your things looks nice, I guess. Great. So I think we done the, but I'm gonna just uncomment this thing to make sure that it's not so cluttered, right? So I'm just gonna uncomment this. Great. So we did some name entity recognition to check that we can always visualize some of the resume we have in resume.csv. The last thing I want to do is actually load some resume, right? So here I have prepared my own resume. It's not perfect. It's just one page, and so I can try it, right? So here I'm gonna say from PI PDF to by the way, you have to pip and store this one first to make it work. Import PDF reader. Right, I'm gonna say that the reader equal to PDF reader, and I wanted to read data and my resume, and then I'm just gonna take the first page, so reader dot page 0, and text equal to page dot extract text. Right. So those my thing, and what I'm gonna do is a text equal to pre-processing text, and I already want to actually take a look at the text, right? So it seems like it's extracting correctly. There's still some kind of bullets, but hopefully that won't interfere much. And I'm gonna do doc NLP text, and then finally gonna just copy this, right? Sorry, just gonna copy this line of code and I put it here, and hopefully so you can see that Python, Java, PyTorch, question answering. Yep. So I have a lot of skills here in my interaction. I'm not sure that is that, but And yeah, there's some kind of weird word here. I'm not sure how does it extract, right? But anyway, this is a paper called Sex Differences, right? But it treats us as person, but that is funny. And then yep, so this is a list of papers, right? Great. So I think that's it, right? So seems like that is a very simple resume parsing. So hopefully you can learn, you can enjoy the SpaCy, and now you can better understand how SpaCy can work in your real world, right? Thank you very much, and see you in next video.